Joining us here on Wildcat Sports Talk, Tim, I tell you what, man, when it comes to a group of folks that we've always wanted on this show, I name this all the time. I say, look, I would love to have Tom Leach. I'd love to have Ralph Hacker. Dick Gabriel is in that, as well as Rob Bromley. And right now, we've got Dick Gabriel on. Dick, thank you for joining us here on Wildcat Sports Talk. It's an honor to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad you and I bumped into each other in the parking lot at the football stadium.
Yes, and speaking of football, I got to say, I'm really, really, really excited about this team this year. Just real quick, your thoughts on that?
They got a real chance to do something special. I don't know if it'll be a 10-win season, and nobody saw that coming either. I don't think in 2018. But if the line play is there on both sides, they've got a real shot. If it's not, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. But we have every reason to think that I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, so most folks know you, the host of the Big Blue Insider, and obviously you've been doing that for quite a while. And then of course your time your time in Kentucky media. I mean, you're a voice when it comes to the cat stuff. So again, like I said, it's just awesome to have you on and hear you on here. My co-host Tim, he obviously will have a question or two as well for you. But real quick, Dick, talking about the football cats. Let's switch over to the basketball side for just a second. Obviously, last year wasn't the year we all hoped for, but with this veteran leadership coming in with under Coach Cal, I mean, how do you think that's going to go?
I think it'll obviously be better than last year, but you hit it. I think veteran leadership is going to be the key because last year when things didn't go well, they really had nowhere to turn. When you think about it, the most experienced, valuable player, Keon Brooks, uh, played how many games? Played a handful of games, and he was around, but he wasn't really around. So when something goes wrong, what do you do? What's your base? Where do you go? And they really had no answers. They had some older kids, but they weren't the solid contributors that you need in a role like that. And quite frankly, I felt like, and this is all hindsight, but after last year's season, I realized that team came together like a fantasy league team. On paper, it looked pretty good, didn't it? And when they got Olivier Sarr, we all penciled him into the Final Four, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
But it just didn't happen that way. I think this year's team is a better team with a capital T.
Yeah, I think so too, Dick. Man, like I said, like Adam said, it's an honor to have you on here, man. I always watched
Thank
you and
you.
admired you, and think you're a true professional and somebody like us in the media world, getting in the media world. I've been a sports writer for 20 years, and me and Adam started this Wildcat Sports Talk, but just a guy that we've always kind of admired from afar. But anyway, I wanted to ask you, going back to football. I think the biggest question for me is, expectations whenever you have a new offensive coordinator, you got a new quarterback. One of our biggest issues last year was not being able to pass the ball. Where do you think reality is going to fall from what we were last year to what the fans hope we're going to be this year?
That's a good word, reality. I think it's going to take a little while. Maybe it'll be a quarter, a half, a game, or more for that offense to gel. You and I both know, or all of us, all three of us know, that the old story, the old cliche about week one to week two, especially in football, that's not, well, it's a cliche because it's true, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
And I think that once they start to click on offense, then I think that'll take a lot of the pressure off the Kentucky defense because there are as many question marks on that defensive side, except for the coordinator spot, I think, as there are on offense. But the fact that they get Wandale Robinson, and you know as well as I that right now teams are planning to double team him. Well, that's fine. That means Josh Ali doesn't get the double teams. And the other young wide receivers will have an opportunity. Plus, everybody in the Big Ten knew to double team Wandale, and he still got it done in Nebraska. So they've got a real chance, I think, to open things up a little bit and really, as Mark Stoops talks about, put stress on opposing defenses more so than they did last year, no question.
Now you've been down, on the sidelines for quite some time. You've seen this kind of progression under Mark Stoops. I mean, tell us a little bit about that. We've kind of, we've not been down there in several years, but tell us how that's just kind of seen transformed before your eyes. I mean, it's really from here. It's been amazing to watch. I can only imagine for you.
Well, it literally has transformed before my eyes because down on the sideline, you get a much better feel for athleticism and size. And I started doing sidelines work, I think it was in 1988, maybe. And, Kentucky would have, as you guys knew, a few guys here and there. I always ask, could they play for anybody else in the league? Who else could they play for? Who else could they start for? And you guys know as well as I that very often there were one or two kids who could maybe line up for Georgia, maybe were recruited by Florida. Now you see the schools are beating out for recruits. And it's not just the frontline guys. When they can sign a 4-star or a 3 to 4-star kid and he doesn't have to play right away, that's a huge plus. So what I've seen them do is get bigger and stronger. And I know everybody gets bigger and stronger, but I mean at the major college level. And then they're faster. And remember when, I don't know how far back you guys remember, when Rich Brooks got here, he had one guy who could run a sub 4.540 in the SEC. No, you're shaking your heads, man. That's yeah, you know exactly what that meant. Now they got track stars out there, so they look and play like a real SEC team.
You hit that. I mean, I actually was on the sidelines during the Rich Brooks era, and I just remember in order to beat teams like Florida or even South Carolina and Tennessee, you would almost have to trick them into a chance to win. You'd have to come up with some really good trick plays. You'd almost have to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Now it's like it's almost expected that we're beating those teams, and I think that's a testament to what Mark Stoops has done.
Yeah, absolutely. Mummy came here with the better mousetrap, essentially tricking people, and they caught on to that. They caught on to the air raid. His biggest problem was the defense was terrible. But, you saw, it seemed like in the second half, teams would really slow down that air raid offense. They still won some games. But remember, Mummy's last year, he only won 2 games. Rabbit out of the hat, you bet. Could the other team make a mistake? Could you maybe return a kick or make a pick 6 play and steal some points? Now they line up and they play SEC football. And I have a friend who used to be a football coach, and when Mummy got here, he said, that I've been waiting for Kentucky to do that. And I said, why? He said, because you can't beat SEC teams playing the way they do. You've got to find another way to do it, be it the option or the air raid or the run and shoot, whatever. Well, Stoops has proved that that's not true. You just got to recruit the right kids, and I might add, put a good staff on the field. And he's got a good coaching staff. And when they lose somebody good, just like Rich Brooks, they go out and get somebody as good or better.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked a lot, especially over the last couple of years, about the Big Blue Wall and how good we are on offense, at least coming into this year. The question mark, I think, for me is the defense. Elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, how are we going to look on the defensive end? We've always been pretty good the last couple of years, but there's some concerns there, at least the way I see it.
Oh, I fully agree, and I think it starts right in the middle with Marquand McCall. He's not Quentin Bohanna. Maybe he will become Quentin Bohanna, who's in the NFL now, as you know. But, and again, downstairs watching, I don't know how much you guys could see from the press box or TV. When McCall would go in, he'd make plays. But, buddy, when he came out, he was gassed. So, he's got to be in shape. The other thing is he kind of clowned around a little bit out there, and generally he went in when the game was decided or, it wasn't on the line, and he could have fun with it. And he'd make a stop, and then he'd wag his finger at the running back, kind of like the Kembe Mutombo used to do,
Love it. Yeah.
And he was fun on the sidelines. But he talked, I don't know if you were in on the Zoom calls in the off season in the spring, but he talked about being more serious, being more mature. And if it starts with him and he commands double teams, well, now you're one ahead on defense, and that gives Pascal an opportunity to get to the quarterback, and J.J. Weaver, if and when he comes back. They had quarterback in the grasp. If in the grasp was a college rule, not a pro rule last year, they would have been fine. But being last in the league in sacks, just 2 or 3 years removed from Josh Allen, that's not good.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in and ask you, as comparing to last year, we had the all SEC schedule, which was brutal for any team in America. But this year, do you think it'll even help that we went through that last year and be able to face some non-conference teams this year? I mean, will it be and you know what I'm saying? Will it be something that we grow from?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think the flat answer is yes. It has to, in a couple of ways. Yeah, the more SEC games you play in, obviously, the better off you are. The other thing is, their conference opener is Missouri, as you know. Excuse me. Missouri, it's amazing how close that game was last year in score, but it just seemed like Kentucky had no chance. And it was one of the longest feeling games I've ever covered because you never felt like Kentucky was going to get back into it. So I felt like, well, they've got something for Missouri. They'll get into Missouri. And then I had Chris Dorning on my show from the SEC Network. He believes Missouri is a sleeper, and their quarterback might be the second best quarterback in the league compared to the kid at Ole Miss. So I think, getting back to your question, I don't think they'll have any problem mentally getting themselves ready for SEC play because of last year's schedule and especially last year's Missouri game.
Yeah, so going back to kind of some of your time there on the sidelines, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. Name one or two of your favorite moments. We're a very nostalgic show. I mean, so we've had, I'd say we've had over 80 former players on our show. I mean, we've had guys like Dick Vitale on, and we've had a ton of guys on this show that are big names, and so a lot of our listeners out there, they're very nostalgic. So give us some of your favorite moments being on the sideline for.
Well, easy, 07 when Stevie got loose, and then the people rushed the field. I guess it was all the rush the field game, the Georgia game in 06 when Lindley made that the interception. But clearly the best for me was the upset of LSU. I felt like that was just, huge. And being out there in the middle of the players and asking them, just how in the world did you guys make this happen? That kind of thing was a lot of fun. But when Stoops, when his teams beat South Carolina for the first time, and people rushed the field because they beat Spurrier. And I'll never forget this. I looked around. I was looking for people to talk to, and over standing in the end zone by himself with a grin on his face was Mark Stoops. And he was just watching the crowd and taking it all in. And I went over and I kind of pointed to the mic and shrugged, and he said, yeah. And so I started talking to him, and it was just one of those organic moments, that you couldn't set it up any better. And that was the first signature win for Mark Stoops. So, and there have been road games as well, but when the crowd gets into it, really, that's the best.
I tell you, that South Carolina game that you're referring to was when Grove Street Party was born. And I'll never forget that because, I mean, it was like an atmosphere in that stadium where it was like, are we turning the corner? Is this happening? Is this really happening? And then I think another game for me was, I believe, 2 years ago. Now it's going on 4, but 2 years ago, or 3 years ago rather, when Mississippi State came in and we just beat them bad. There was a Josh Allen game.
Yeah,
it was really loud that night, and I just remember it was raining. It was a packed stadium. It was one of the most electric environments, and I think Mark Stoops, what he's done at Kentucky is create an environment at the stadium that's just not something we've really ever felt consistently, and we get that just about every year with at least one or two games.
Yeah, and they did that twice with Georgia. Didn't win either game, but you remember when Georgia came to town, I think it was, now they're all running together, aren't they? But 4 or 5 years ago, they played them a 3-point game one year, and then there was another year where they just, they kind of ran away from Kentucky. But the crowd was literally on its toes all night long because the SEC East was on the line.
Yeah.
And I was 15 years with the SEC Radio Network as a producer, and I worked both the basketball tournament and the football championship game. So for 15 straight years, I went to the SEC football championship game, and I witnessed firsthand, literally, what that's like. And I wanted so badly for you guys, for the fans, for the media, and obviously for the players and coaches. That is one of the greatest events in the world. And if Kentucky could somehow slip into that game, that would be an entire week that this state would never forget.
Oh, I think that if there is a year to do it, if there's a year to do it, I think we're looking at it right now.
Maybe.
Yeah, my next question, it makes me think of that is, to me, Will Levis. I mean, that's on everybody's mind. There's a lot of hype right now about Will Levis. When Adam and I went to media day, we interviewed some players, and we came away going, he's the starter, definitely. His confidence level is just out the roof. I mean, he sounds and feels like a leader. What do you think on him? What is your honest feelings on how good is he, you think?
Well, he's looked good in drills. The biggest question is why didn't he win the starting job at Penn State? Having interviewed one of the writers who covers that beat, she said they really didn't run an offense that was designed to highlight his skills. And that I'm certain that's exactly why Liam Cohen reached out to him when he saw that his name was in the portal. As you know, Cohen recruited him at Maine. And I've got to think it might not have been the same offense, but I got to think they were running a similar offense. And he believed that Will Levis fit that offensive package the way he believes he'll fit at Kentucky. So I do think there's a question mark there. In addition to this, I don't know about you guys, but I found it really interesting when he's talked about the fact that he needs to work on his leadership skills and work with his communication skills. This is a guy in his third year of college football. And you would think that by now with a quarterback, that would be instinctual and something that just comes easily. But he admitted he did not do a very good job at that at Penn State. Now, coming here knowing that's the case, that's huge. And the fact that you guys got that vibe from other players that they've already connected with him, I think that's really big. And I think the coaches can tell that as well. I also think it was interesting that neither Joey Gatewood nor Bo Allen had really grabbed the job. You know what I mean? Especially Gatewood, who had been a starter at Auburn. So it's such a great mystery. Like the Kentucky Derby, you don't know, can they run a mile and a quarter at age 3? We're going to find out, aren't we, on opening day?
I'm really, speaking of Bo Allen, I mean, I really happy for him. I think, coming into this, a lot of people would have thought that it might have gone, even maybe Joey Will Bo or Will Joey Bo. So for Bo to be named number 2 is good for him. Kentucky kid, I think he very much loves that.
Oh yeah, and I know his dad. I mean, a lot of us do, and you know as well as I, you guys have been around for the last several years. How many times has a quarterback gone through a Kentucky season unscathed? He's going to get he's going to be tossed out there again like he was last year, and I think he'll respond better this time.
Exactly. Well, listen, Dick. Again, as always, I mean, like, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I mean, we really, we've built this thing in a little over a year, and it's been incredible what we've been able to do. Both of us have been in the media game covering UK at some point in our career. Now we just decided to branch out on our own and do it our own way, and this is what it's resulted in. And we've worked really hard to get where we're at.
Good.
And having you on the show, that's just one more thing for us that we can say we did. And
I'm happy for your success, and call me anytime.
Hey, listen, thank you so much, and go Cats.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
See you, fellas.